I can see it now. Your future holds a glowing storm of destruction. Bright orange, filled with crackling energy, the likes of which you have never seen before. But this isn't a prophecy, it's the present power of the Oracle. The strongest hero in the Mage Guild, this one-eyed, fortune-seeing witch is formidable, dealing massive amounts of AoE damage. She ranks as one of the highest DPS heroes in Heroes vs. Hordes. So, how does she conjure up this level of chaos from seemingly nowhere? Well, that's exactly what we're going to uncover today. I'll break down the Oracle to understand her base stats, forge, skills, and globals to understand what makes this witch tick. But there's a catch. Yes, she's powerful, but only if you play her right. So I'll show you how to unleash her true potential. And by the way, I'm Coles, a high-level HVH player on the grind for 1,000 subscribers. If this helps you peer into the future to master the Oracle, please consider subscribing, because the future looks bright, but a little dangerous. So let's dive in. With any hero, it's important to start with the fundamentals. It's been my experience in my travels around video games that what separates the best players from an average player is simply the understanding of the little things. In the Oracle's case, once you understand her base stats and her weapon, you'll start to see why she's so strong. Looking at her level progression, she gets AoE at level 20, effect duration at 30, and then a magical projectile at 60. But here's where the pattern begins. At 140, she gets more effect duration. So which of those stats did I say twice? Her weapon, the crystal ball, unleashes watchful eyes that deal damage when touched. They remain on the battlefield for a set duration. They can and do overlap, causing multiple orbs to do damage to the same target. That means there are 3 important stats that will increase the damage that the Oracle does. The first is cooldown, because more orbs is more damage. The second is area of effect, because more touching is more damage. And the third is effect duration. More lingering, more damage. Thrice makes a pattern, my friends. Effect duration. You can make her orbs last longer on the battlefield via effect duration, making the Oracle one of the few heroes to benefit from that trait. Furthermore, you can gather from her level 140 ability that Freywood, the lead hero design for Heroes vs. Hordes, believes that a 30% increase in effect duration is a net 15 to 20% increase in her damage. But now that I've set effect duration like 30 times, why is it so important for the Oracle? All it does is make her orbs stay on the battlefield longer. The short answer? Because skills. The best heroes in Heroes vs. Hordes get the majority of their damage not from their weapons, but from their skills, as skills typically do some multiple of base damage. The best of the best get talents that actually apply to their skills. The one that comes to mind the most is Warlord, and how area of effect actually increases the area of wide swing. Well, each of the Oracle's skills benefits from talents. If you guessed effect duration, you're half right. Her first skill at level 40 is Astral Radiance, which inflicts weapon damage to any enemy touching her orbs every 2 seconds. Think of this as a small but more reliable version of the Artificer's energy infusion. Your orbs will get pulsing damage every 2 seconds, but you can have multiple orbs out on the battlefield, each doing damage to the same enemy. So what gives you more orbs? Effect duration. We're gonna have to figure out how to make him talk. Her second skill is Nova at level 80. Nova unleashes, and this lady does a lot of unleashing, a powerful 360-degree pressure wave, dealing weapon damage every 20 attacks. 20 attacks. You know what that means? Say it with me. More effect. No, it's cooldown. More cooldown will increase her attack speed and let her do more attacks more quickly. So think of her as really good in something like hard mode, arena, or in Boss Brawl, where you can hit that 90% cap reliably. Finally, her ultimate, Spectral Cascade, casts off clearing enemies via any source, which is better than clearing enemies from only your main weapon. Her ultimate unleashes orbs that travel in all directions and bounce off of walls, dealing some amount of weapon damage. But the most interesting aspect of her ultimate is the fact that it's creating more orbs. So you have orbs galore! And she's just an AoE beast dealing massive damage to all over the battlefield as long as her orbs are present. Now there's one more place to see if we get any more orbs. Her forge. The key with any forge is to look for whether or not the levels of the forge impact not only the weapon, but the skills. As it turns out, they do. This is much more typical in recent adventure heroes and recent hero design than it was in the past. Feels like it used to happen by accident, and now it's much more deliberate. But, as is the case in her particular timeline, it all comes back to orbs. Level 1 has two options. You can go left for Mythic Strike and a 1.1 multiple to damage, or go right for Endless Vision and 1.1 times effect duration. This is the only time in the game I think I've seen a multiple to effect duration, so you know where we're going with this one. To the right in effect duration, because at the end of the day, effect duration is more orbs. Level 2, you can go left for Stunning Smite, which increases your damage to stun enemies by 1.15 times, or you can go right for more projectile speed. I'm not entirely clear how projectile speed helps her kit, so I would prefer to go left in most scenarios where you can guarantee any kind of stun on any horde, but for something like Boss Brawl where you're not going to get any stuns, then you can just go right for projectile speed. At level 3, her forge bonus is a global to XP, because she wants you to obviously see the future. Apparently I think you see the future like that. Back to the forge, however, her level 4 gives you prophecy orbs, and a massive increase to your damage. Orbs can now form links between the two furthest orbs, creating more damage to any enemy that touches them. And again, this is all orb dependent, meaning it's going to come back to effect duration. Lastly, her 5th level 4 Orb Mastery allows for a second connection. Alternatively, you could cut back on your damage and go right for Mystic Burst, which will cause all of the orbs to explode and causing a small stun around them for 2 seconds. I haven't seen anybody talk about this stun on Discord. I could see it potentially being helpful if you're trying to clear Nightmare mode, and then you can also benefit from her level 2 increased damage to stunned enemies. Coming back to where we started, all in, the most important part of her forge is that it is an amp to both her skills and her weapon. The increase in effect duration and the linkage between the orbs means that all of her orbs will continue to get stronger. So, if you don't have a main hero, she should be a top consideration for you. She can put out such a massive amount of damage that she can carry through hard mode and through most of the game. But if you already have a main hero, then the Oracle is less attractive, because her globals are nothing to write home about. Looking through the Oracle's globals, the big benefit here is an increase to XP, but in total, I think they're kind of lacking. We talked about it already, you get 2.5% XP from her level 3 Forge, and you also get 2.5% XP from her level 120 global. Her level 15 global is 15 HP a minute, which shouldn't even be in the game, and then her level 70 global is 2.5% to effect duration, fitting with her theme. Her level 90 faction bonus is 5% area of effect, which is quite strong and helps her and every other mage. And then her faction bonus within the Magic Council is increased effect duration. Again, she's the queen of effect duration. So my quick take here is that her globals are honestly about mid, and not worth taking if you already have a main hero and you won't be using the Oracle to clear up the content. But if you do need her to be your main hero, I'll walk through a quick build that takes advantage of, you guessed it, effect duration. With the Oracle, you're looking to do as much damage as you can, and that means stacking as much effect duration as you can. You want to stack it as high as her eye can look to the sky. This build builds off of Artemis's original guide that you can find in the HVH spreadsheet. His unique insight was that with enough effect duration, you can actually get the Oracle to be permanently ulting, massively increasing her damage. Some might say, you stop casting your ultimate and just live in a permanent state of massive AoE damage. And while others might say that, I just say it comes back to effect duration. So with that in mind, for weapons, you can run something like fire orbs, bombs, lightning, and crossbow. This is the standard max DPS build, so nothing interesting there if you only have base weapons. With premium weapons, you can start to substitute those in for probably something like fire orbs, which may not even get past her line of orb damage. The interesting part here is how you complement the weapons with tomes. Her tome priority actually puts duration tome at the top, and then you follow that up with standard, cooldown, area, duplicator, and damage. Which is great, because usually you have an issue filling up that 5th spot with something useful, and in this case, it's effect duration, and it actually is the most useful. And then with jewels, you follow it up with the same logic. You start with vulnerability, ultimate duration, and ultimate charge, and then you go with cooldown until you hit 60% in most game modes, and then you start stacking more effect duration. Now I'm going to pause for some effective duration. So there you have it. That's my guide to the Oracle. I've seen the future, and it's full of this one-eyed witch doing massive amounts of AoE damage. So if you've been searching for a sign to build her, this should be the crystal clear revelation. You can build her correctly and make the effective duration of her legacy everlasting. And I'm Coles, a high-level HVH player and part of a top 10 guild. You can find a written companion to this guide on my website, hvhlounge.com. Or you can sign up for my Patreon, where you can get priority answers to your questions, and become an executive producer. The executive producers of this video are Cake Invictus, Riverwind, The Wubba, Krabs, and Charlos. Please subscribe if you found it helpful, and remember, always do your adventure!